Hello everybody and welcome to my Phantasy Star Booba Online 2 New Genesis review, first impression, kind of a little bit of a both honestly, mostly because the game doesn't have a lot of content to where I really want to call this a first impression, considering I'm kind of just halfway done with all the content the game has to offer, being only 4 hours in at the moment. And I feel like I already have gotten everything the game kind of has to offer, as right now the game is level capped to level 20 and there really is no sign of end game content, just kind of this continuous loop that you expect to come from these style of MMOs. But that does not mean the game is bad by any means. Sega's big update for the critically acclaimed MMORPG is actually quite good. Really, my only complaint so far would be the lack of content. But the content that it does have and the foundation that it has in place is quite phenomenal. And boy, do I mean the content is great, as there is content on content. Jokes aside though, let's get into the review. As I mentioned before, this is actually my first time playing any form of Phantasy Star Online, so my experiences here will be very fresh, and I actually have zero experience or knowledge of the previous games in the franchise. So playing this game for the first time was definitely a welcome surprise. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and starting off we had the character creation screen, which has a ton of options for variety. You can make it the most gorgeous character with tons of booba, or you can make an absolute monstrosity depending on whatever you really like. There's actually so much variation in this character creation screen that I'd be surprised if avid MMO players would not be spending up to hours here just to create the perfect masterpiece or monster. After you create your character, you'll be thrown into the prologue/tutorial where you'll be learning all about the game's lore and how to control your character. Boy, is this where the game shines. New Genesis combat feels so good. I actually cannot state how good it feels. You are running around and you just feel like an utter badass the entire time. I play primarily with the fist at the start, eventually switching over to the dual swords, and I felt the power behind both of them. Fist made me feel like an agile fighter in every combat, and dual swords made me feel like the edgiest anime character possible. And this is all thanks to New Genesis' amazing mobility system. You have so much free movement in this game, from ground mobility, from your typical sprint, jump, to aerial options, to double jumping, wall kicking, gliding. You have so many movement options, it actually gets a little overbearing to what you can do, which in my opinion is awesome. I love having this much mobility in MMOs. I personally have never enjoyed the traditional tab targeting MMOs where, you know, you just sit there, you cast your spell and you move on. I always found them very boring, but games like this, such as Dragon's Dogma, have always caught my interest. Even if I'm not exactly the most avid MMO fan, the form of combat and mobility you get from these games just feels so rewarding when you master it, and it has that same feeling and weight, such as games like Warframe, where you just really feel like a badass. And while I only did play with the two weapons during my few short hours, playing with some of my friends, I could see the same beautiful particle effects, the same weights behind their weapons, it was just really nice and refreshing to see this coming from an MMO. And maybe this is the norm for Phantasy Star Online. I personally don't know. You guys can tell me down in the comments below and just tell me, well, Tom, you're an idiot. You clearly just never played a Phantasy Star Online game before. This is exactly what you should be expecting. But I was really blown away by how nice everything felt. And this also goes into the day one launch. The day one launch, while of course it had quite a few issues in terms of massive server lag or even getting into your ship altogether, it was still, for a launch, the servers didn't go down once when I was playing it. It did go through a few extended maintenances during its few launch hours, but over the course of the day, it seems to have smoothed out quite okay. Don't get me wrong, the hiccups were still quite annoying, as we had parts of the day where we really just couldn't even fight monsters, as we didn't know if we had been registered as hit yet, so our HP wouldn't have dropped yet. So sometimes you just randomly die, and that was really frustrating. We also had a really funny moment where we were hitting a rock for 2 minutes straight, trying to mine some ores, and we were actually, it just wouldn't break. It turned into like this super intense like anime fight. This also brings it to the monsters. The little amount of monsters that we saw throughout the game felt great. They had their own unique identity, they had their own tools to fight you back, they felt powerful throughout the entire time you were fighting them, and they legitimately feel like a threat. Of course, this only really applied to the higher end mobs, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. The big beasts that you'll find in this open world, the boss monsters, the world monsters, these are the ones that will really pack a punch. Of course, the usual mobs that you'll find around just, you know, casually laying around the world didn't really pose much of a threat, but that's to be expected. And this really all works because of New Genesis' new graphic engine. And wow, does it actually perform beautifully. For an MMO, this game looks stunning. I mean, I came from playing some Final Fantasy XIV not too long ago, and that is, you know, what is considered to be one of the better looking MMOs out there. So playing Phantasy Star Online definitely felt like a direct upgrade from what I was seeing. And maybe this is just New Genesis, but it looked really, really good. Nothing that's gonna like blow your mind, but it does look really, really good for what it's trying to do. Now, what about questing? Questing is, you know, the bread and butter of any MMORPG. And the questing in this game is exactly what you would expect. And there's a reason I am distinctly covering questing in this. You'll go, you'll fight mobs, you'll talk in the main hub, you'll come back, you'll talk to NPC, you'll fight more mobs. Rinse, repeat, until you level up. Now, the reason I bring this up because around level 8, I actually hit my first cap. And this cap was to hit a 950 gear score. For anyone who's played any of the Destiny games, you'll know exactly where I'm going with this. This felt like padding. Just padding out that the game did not have enough content on its launch. And from there on out, for the next about an hour and a half to 2 hours, I was trying to get my gear score up just by doing random side quests and mobbing and just farming just to level up to just barely hit that gear score by upgrading bad equipment, which honestly felt like such a waste. And I get why Sega decided to do this. It doesn't really surprise me. The game is currently capped out at level 20 with more free content on the way. There's a roadmap, and on that roadmap we can see that the first major update to this game will be coming out in the winter, increasing the level cap to level 35, adding the new classes, and introducing a new region. So this is definitely, of course, an ongoing production, but it did leave a bit of a sour taste in my mouth once I did hit that grind wall and was just like, oh, I'm kind of forced to just grind it out to get to the next gear score. And then once I did hit that gear score, guess what happens? I got another quest telling me to hit another gear score, which again is just clear padding due to a lack of content. This doesn't feel like it was rushed in any sense. It only really felt rushed in terms of the questing. Aside from the questing and the server lag that was dealt with on the day one launch, I didn't really have that many issues with this game at all. I actually quite enjoyed it. Especially for someone who doesn't typically like MMOs, this came out to be kind of a surprise for me. Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis has everything you expect out of it. It is your very run-of-the-mill MMO, and in my opinion, it feels like an anime version of Warframe. And personally, I am super excited to see where this game is going to take itself in the future. The game looks very promising moving forward with the roadmap, and what it currently has is a fun hub to play around in, but you really won't get more than a few hours out of it currently. With that being said though, this is a free-to-play title. You can download it right now on Steam, the Epic Games Store, or the Microsoft Store. So really, why wouldn't you just download it right now? Give it a shot for yourself. Let me know down in the comments what you think. And hey, if you did enjoy this type of video, you know, consider liking the video. Helps me out a ton with the YouTube algorithm. And you know, maybe subscribing to the channel also helps me out a ton. And if you want to know whenever I do upload a new video, or I'm going to go stream live on Twitch, you know, I have a Discord down below. You'll get notifications there. You can just talk to the awesome community that we have there, or we can talk about Phantasy Star Online too, you know? Just tell me how dumb I am. I'm fine with that. I'm used to it. It's okay. I want to thank all the patrons who support the channel. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting me constantly. And anybody that's interested in joining the Patreon or anything else, we'll have all the links down in the description below.